Right. Oh. Okie dokie. Well, hello. Well, that's awkward because I'm not going to dance for you or I don't have anything that lights up. But hello, Lowlands. And you're right, it's really hard to see the audience with all the smoke. But hello. So I get to keynote, which is really exciting. So I will just crack on straight away. So I am Sarah Young. I thought, to start with, I'll talk about myself in a minute, but I have keynoted before, but I thought, as any good tech professional should, the first thing I would do when I was asked to keynote is I would ask ChatGPT what a keynote is. So apparently, a keynote's a presentation or a speech that sets the tone for an event. It's supposed to be exciting, so I was like, okay, let's do this. Oh, and also, I did this slide this morning. I have issues with how we're advertising our password for the event. If no one's seen this, we're using the SSID. Lars, you've seen it, good. No, please don't well, maybe don't do this for a, maybe in your organization at least. This is not the way to do this. Yeah. But whilst we go through this talk, we're going to be doing some fun interactive bits. I really hope it all works. Please grab the QR code or use the URL there. Sorry, it's kind of a bit ugly. We'll be doing some interactive bits. Normally in a smaller place, I probably would have done show of hands, but obviously that's not going to work here. Plus, I can't see you all anyway. So I think you can actually start answering the questions before we get to them, maybe, but well, you can if you want. It won't make sense, but. So, what am I going to talk about today then? I'll tell you who I am, because I haven't done that properly yet. Then I'm going to talk to you about lots of things in security. We know security is important. I hope that you all know security is important. And there's a lot of things that we need to talk about. I'm also going to give you a bit of an overview of the threat landscape, things that are going on and why you should care. We're going to talk about getting back to basics, and then I'm going to talk about stuff you should know about. And by stuff you should know about, what I mean is security capabilities that you should care about, even if you are not a security professional and you think, oh, that's the security team's job. There are things you should be aware of and some cool things coming up. So, quick to start with. Let's see. There we go. Who am I? I am a senior cloud security advocate at Microsoft. These are my dogs. They're really cute. I am most definitely a crazy dog woman. Sadly, they are not here. They are in Australia. I actually live in Melbourne. What I find amusing is, I've got to shout this out, that you brought two people from Australia to start and end your conference. And both of us are fake Australians. Neither of us are actually Australian. So I'm originally from the UK. I won't introduce Lars. He can do that himself. I wrote some MS Press books. I do a security podcast, which disturbingly has been going for like 3 years now. I never thought that would be a thing. And I've worked in security for a long time. I say that I started working in security before it was cool. Because now it's really cool. It didn't used to be. Everyone used to hate it, or hate us. And I always do this before we go anywhere when I do presentations abroad. Yes, this will kill you. This will kill you. This will kill you. This will kill you. That will kill you. That would definitely kill you. That ripped-ass kangaroo. That's a real kangaroo, by the way. He was called Roger. He died recently. And cockatoos drink beer, apparently. So you can come and talk to me about this later, but yes, everything in Australia is trying to kill you. So we'll just get that one out of the way. Also, though, I do, I'm not sure how this is going to work. Maybe I'll just throw them at the end. I bring stickers. You can come up to the box. I don't think that's what that box was for, but that's what I'm using it for. I also have Tim Tams Australian biscuits. They're individual. Yeah, woo, yes, exactly. I don't have enough for everybody. I might just throw them randomly into the audience at some point, because they're not hard enough to hurt you, hopefully. So yeah, fun times. Like, give me thumbs up on the talk rating just because I threw biscuits at you. It's a good reason. So, before we go any further, I would like to, on behalf of security, for anyone who's not security in here, I would like to apologize on our behalf, because we have historically been really terrible to the rest of IT. We have been awful to devs. We have been awful to IT pros, system admins, you name it. Security has typically been very unhelpful. And can anyone here raise their hand if you feel that you have ever been personally victimized by a security team? Yeah, cool, yeah. There's fewer hands than I expect, but okay. Yeah, if you have ever personally been victimized by security, we know that security historically was not super helpful. And we would say, no, thou shalt do this, or thou shalt not do this, just because security. And I don't care it takes you 5 extra hours to do that. You should, because security. And has anybody, again, raise your hand if you have ever been told to do something by security, but it was very difficult, and so you didn't do it? Come on, confess. Yes, okay. So, look, everyone's like, yeah. So, what I'll say is, everyone knows, we have not been great. So then you get things like this. What the just say the fake O'Reilly. What the fuck is security? How to ignore it, deliver your project. Why would I care about that? I have to say, I did not make this. This is credit to a guy in New Zealand who made this one. But then we have things like, for devs, make your security team go away. It's, right? This is what we have done to ourselves as security, largely. And I think if you have not talked to your security team recently, or you're not friends with them, go and chat to them, because the attitudes are changing. We are trying to be more forward-thinking, more collaborative, because the way everything has changed in the environment, it doesn't really work. Now, I'm not saying everybody's there yet. There are definitely at least pockets of people not thinking that way, but I will try and change your mind today. I'm going to be like, I'm sorry. We're good, I promise. But before you go any further, look, what's your favorite name for your security team? People have already done it. But this could be business prevention officers. It could be the no people. These are Wi-Fi code. Yeah, I like that. This updates as we go. Cybers, deal breakers, Proots, I don't know that word. Shaggy, Bucket, Code Busters, Leaky, just Cyber 401, Duck, I don't even understand that one. Firefighters, yeah, deal breakers, yeah. You folks are really kind. I thought there was going to be worse words. By the way, it's all anonymous, and I'm only using the free version of PolyV, so it doesn't record them either. It doesn't save them, so you can write whatever you want on these answers, by the way. But we know that we traditionally haven't been super popular, and you guys have been way nicer than I expected you to be here, so hey. Poll is full. Oh, that's probably the free version. It said I could have 700 responses. Well. And then, I'm a master. If you've ever seen a talk of mine before, you may know that I do these absolutely beautiful, artful, bad movie posters. You can see here, look, security versus developer. Whoever wins, we lose. We've had quite an adversarial relationship with the rest of IT, which is not actually useful. This was Alien versus Predator, by the way, if you didn't know. Because there is no winning. We shouldn't be fighting with each other, but security has often positioned itself as fighting with the rest of IT and trying to save it. This is a bad thing. So this is kind of our level set where we start. Oh, and then security loves to write stuff for other security people. Have you noticed that? We don't write stuff for the rest of IT or the rest of the business or the rest of the world, because security is everybody. And then we're like, So why aren't they doing that? Why aren't they doing that? Because we wrote it in a really inaccessible way. We like to write stuff for each other and then wonder why nobody looks at it. I've done a whole talk on this in Black Hat, so that's a thing. But the world has changed in security terms. It's changed in all other terms too, but just kind of a recap on how IT has changed in security terms. I'm a big meme fan, by the way, so there are way too many memes in this. But for a start, the network is not your enterprise security boundary anymore. It is not. I'll ask this later on. But you may have seen this slide before. It's not a new one. It's very beautiful and was not made by me. I can't claim credit. But security boundaries have changed. So this is, what you can see here, is your traditional on-prem enterprise boundary. So you can see we have a data center. We have some servers in there. We have some desktops attached and maybe a couple of mobile devices. And then we've got this lovely big, we've got a nice big data center perimeter. And we have 5 firewalls. Nice. But this is how we used to do things before the cloud happened. And then things started to change. We got SaaS. Now, that could be Office, could be G Suite, Salesforce, whatever. Companies started adopting SaaS things. So again, your data, your things are starting to move outside the data center. Then you'd get your BYOD, because everyone loves some BYOD, right? It's just, everyone expects BYOD now. So again, more applications, more data started moving outside this traditional perimeter. And then you might have had Internet of Things. And then finally, we've got cloud. So what we call the proper cloud. We have infrastructure as a service, platform as a service. And so now what you can see is our perimeter has changed quite a lot. And this enterprise perimeter is very different to what it once was. Now, I realize that this has implications for the rest of IT as well, but I am doing a security talk, so I will focus on that. But essentially, this obsession with firewalling and networking and keeping everything in your data center, that just can't happen anymore. And I have sadly had a disturbing number of people, and we've actually already got to this. Is your security team still obsessed with network controls? No, I still, when I do these, I love it because it updates live. I love it. Someone actually said no. Huh. I'm expecting it to stay like that though. But we still see, and I talk to people all the time who say, like, our security team just still want to use firewalls. And I'm not saying that we don't need some network security controls, we do, but that is not the way that we can actually properly secure everything anymore. It's identity. So identity is the only way that we can consistently have controls, not just in a data center. But sadly, we still do have like a really big chunk of security, and I am not a one-woman band, but there are many of us trying to change that perception. We'll get there. It's just a slow thing. But sadly, yeah, exactly what it shows on the poll. Security teams are still really obsessed, which is a shame because we have so many other things which I'm going to tell you about. So let's look at the threat landscape before we talk about all the ways that we can do fun things. Now, I use a couple of slides. If you've ever seen me do a talk before, there's a couple of slides in here you will recognize because they are so important that I roll them out time and time again because they're really scary. Anyway, anyone heard this phrase before though? Like, why would anyone hack us? The answer is they will hack everyone, by the way. You can steal this slide that I'm going to show you. So these stats come from, I'll just put the whole thing up on the screen. These stats come from Microsoft Security Research. It's in US dollars. This is scary. So for those, if you've never seen this slide before and you haven't heard me explain it before, because like I said, I love it, we talk a lot about 0 days. So 0 days, for anyone who doesn't know, 0 days are the vulnerabilities that have no patch. There's no mitigation to them. Now, 0 days typically don't come up too often, and they're not around for a long time. The most recent big one was Log4j. Anyone had fun with Log4j like 18 months ago when that happened? Yeah, exactly. So 0 days are scary when they happen because having a vulnerability you can't patch is scary. But the reality is in order to develop or research a 0 day, it costs a lot of money. You need some really specialist researchers and you need quite a lot of time and effort. So it's not that you shouldn't be concerned about them, but if we go around the diagram here, you can see that there's actually a lot of other things that you should probably be more concerned about. So So I'm not going to read them all out, but see, denial of service, it's $100 a day. You can get a bargain of $766 a month if you buy in bulk. Ransomware, this one's scary. So you can buy a ransomware kit on the dark web for about $66, or you can get effectively ransomware as a service. So you commission someone, I'm not joking, yeah, you laugh, but you can commission somebody who will go and ransomware somebody for you, and when they pay up, they clip the ticket and take some of the money. So which is really quite terrifying. It's amazing what you can get on the internet. But the point being is that, and I always ask this question though. So you can buy compromised accounts, as you probably know. You can buy a dump for, you can see $150, you get 400 million dumped accounts from some kind of leak. Now, of course, if you use the same username and password combination anywhere, and that happens to go in one of those dumps, you have a problem because your creds are floating around the internet. Now, I'm big on confessing security sins. Raise your hand if you have the same username and password combination somewhere in your life. Somewhere. Come on. Yes. Exactly. So everyone's like, yeah, we do. So if that gets compromised anywhere, your creds are floating around, which is kind of scary. And so the point being here that this is crazy accessible. Like, you don't need a lot of money or a lot of skill to do some of these attacks. Now, I always tell the story, so sorry if anyone's heard it before. I have a friend who works for, who used to work for the New Zealand CERT. So CERT is the Cyber Emergency Response Team. They are the government organization that anybody in the public can call if they have a cybersecurity problem. Do you know what their most frequent call is? It is teenagers DDoSing each other. So they DDoS yes, because when they're playing stuff like Fortnite, you can go online and for $1 or $2, you can DDoS your competitor and knock them offline so you can win. This is a thing. And I confirm this because I have a 15-year-old cousin who I saw a couple of months ago, and I was talking about it, and he's like, oh, yeah, I DDoS people. And I was like, just really casually, and I was like, oh, cool. So the point being here that if our teenagers, our kiddies, people who are just doing it because they want to win at Fortnite can go and buy some of these attack services. Think about what somebody who was properly motivated, who was serious, could do. You don't need a lot of skill. You don't need a lot of money for most of this stuff. So it's really important that we actually have security controls. Although 0 days are scary, using the same username and password is a damn sight scarier, in my opinion, because it's actually far more likely someone would do something with that. So there's your first fun bit of information. And then this is probably a big one. Apart from Lars, anyone from Australia? Didn't think so. Just if an off chance, if there was anyone apart from Lars. So API attacks have been a really big thing in Australia recently. Knowing nod. For those of you who don't know, Optus is one of the big telcos. There's only like 2 in Australia. Optus had an open API that basically was connected to their customer database with no authentication, and someone basically pulled the entire customer database. So that was... Yes, I know. It wasn't great. So obviously Optus got in a fair bit of trouble. But these API attacks, I mean, that's one of the most recent ones, but we've had others in the past. So actually API attacks in particular, because everyone uses APIs, are really bad. And this is just bad API security. The Optus one, I believe from what I have read, it has 0 authentication. Like literally you just pinged it and it was like, hello, have a customer database, which, because sometimes we forget with security that we often think, oh, it's someone sat in a hoodie, going hack. A lot of the time, and I'll get onto this, that is not the case. It can be mistakes. It can be people doing things accidentally. It isn't always malicious, but making a mistake can be then exploited by someone who is bad. Optus, they were pretty lucky that no one did anything super bad yet with the stuff, but it's now out there. You can't get it back in, so who knows? And then for those of the devs in the room, application security is not great either. Although I don't want to be like, devs, you are bad, because I know security does that. But we've had 650% increase in software supply chain attacks. Most applications and containers, 75% of them run with critical or high vulnerabilities. They're the ones that we would generally recommend you don't run things with, and there can be reasons this happens, I know, but there's a lot of things going on. And then good old hard-coded secrets. Who here has accidentally pushed a key or a secret into a repo? Yeah, okay, yeah, exactly. That's scary, by the way, but yes. And when it's out there, now the research shows, because we actually scan for this sort of stuff all the time, and so do other cloud providers, we have now found that something like, if you accidentally upload a key or a secret or some creds into a repo, attackers are constantly scanning, looking, just using automated tooling, scanning for it. Nowadays, the time between something being uploaded, whether accidental or malicious, and it being picked up and used by an attacker is minutes. Minutes. That's how quick this stuff is. So I'm going to talk about automation and all that fun stuff, but also remember the attackers use it too. So how do we do security? I would love to tell you, and some people will, that you need to get a whole raft of shiny tools, and shiny tools help. But in fact, we need to go back to basics, because we don't do basics properly. Who remembers WannaCry back in 2017? Yeah. So WannaCry, for those of you who are uninitiated, WannaCry caused a lot of problems. WannaCry although people called it a 0-day, it was not a 0-day. It was patched. It had a patch available that had been available for 2 months, and it was marked as a critical patch, but most people hadn't done it, which is why when this happened, it went around the world. But like I said, it's not even a particular country's problem. It went all around the world. It just showed that the world was really bad at patching, essentially, which is scary. And there were some businesses that just didn't get affected, not because they patched, but because they were super lucky. There was a company, one of the large shipping companies, they had their entire domain taken down by it, and the only reason that they didn't have to basically rebuild their domain from scratch is because they happened to have a very random domain controller this is a complete tangent. I wasn't going to tell this story, but whatever. It's a fun story. They had a random domain controller in Africa somewhere in Africa, and they'd had a power cut. So when WannaCry happened and went around the network, this thing was offline because of a power cut, and that was how they could restore everything. Yeah, seriously, this is a true story. That's not security. That's really lucky. So incredibly lucky. Yeah, so there you go. But, basics are important. So this is the point. A shiny new security tool is great, but your basic security hygiene is so important. So this is something I also pull out in pretty much every talk I do, because we're still not getting this right, which means I will bring out this slide every single time until we do. But all the research shows that if you do basic security good practices that we have known and loved for years and years, it will get rid of 95, 96, 97% of security attacks. It's that simple. You can be like, hey, let's spend $1 million on a firewall, but you're not patching. It really doesn't make sense, and we're still not really amazing at this. So please remember this. We release, if anyone reads the Microsoft Digital Security Report that we release every year, literally this is a variation of this graphic is in there every single year, because we still don't do it right. And also, we have a thing about anti-patterns as well. So I don't know if you're familiar with the phrase anti-pattern. An anti-pattern is a common response to a problem that doesn't help. But we still keep doing it. And I'll give you a few in a minute. Whereas what we should be doing is a best practice. And of course, a best practice is a way of dealing with something that we know actually helps. So let's see if you recognize any of these. First of all, positioning security as an adversary to the rest of IT. Have we seen that? Yes, of course we have. We've already answered that question. Using on-premises controls to secure cloud. Yeah. Does anyone have to hairpin their internet through the on-prem to go out and the clack doesn't break out? There. Does it work? Yeah, barely, exactly. Also, it's not even more secure. Well, trying to secure workloads after they've been deployed. Yes, knowing laughs. And security owning the risk. Now, this one I feel very strongly about because, and I am reformed. I used to feel like this because security doesn't own risk. Security informs the rest of the business saying, hey, here's a thing you could do. If you do it, this is the consequence. There's a vulnerability in your application. It's quite bad, but it's not very likely something will happen. Do you want to fix it and delay deploying, or and cost the business millions of dollars, or do we take the risk? That's not security's call to make that decision. It's just security's job to inform someone who probably gets paid a lot more money, preferably with a C in front of their job title. That is to make that decision and take that responsibility. And security are really bad at that because we're kind of funny people, right? We like to think that the God-given mission is security, when in fact, security is just a function of a business. And so if security doesn't help the business, security is not actually doing what it should do. But sadly, a lot of security people do not think like that. They're just like, I must secure. It is my God-given job. I must secure. And that's when we come out with problems. But also, if you're in an organization where your security do genuinely own risk, you need to look at your organization structure because that's not right. And then, anyone familiar with the Swiss cheese model? I could literally do a whole talk about this, but I prefer using Swiss cheese because I think more people are familiar with it, but the posh security phrase we've given to this is defense in depth. But essentially, there should be multiple layers of security controls. So if one fails, there's something else, because nothing is 100%. So you can't just put a firewall in front of something and be like, we're done. Oh, and you can't just put 5 firewalls in front of something, because I've seen people say that defense in depth is the same control multiple times. No. I really like talking about planes because I spend too long on them, but aviation industry also has the same kind of thing in that there are multiple layers of controls. And so if something terrible happens, which of course we hope it doesn't, then multiple controls have gone wrong. And so it should make it less likely. So never think that it should never be just one thing that you use to protect something. There should be multiple layers because sometimes a control will fail, and that's expected. But you only get a really bad disaster if all of those holes line up, which shouldn't happen very often, if ever. But security is not 100%, and don't let anybody, and that doesn't mean you're being negative, or it doesn't mean that you're being negative, and it doesn't mean that you're being just sort of giving up. The fact is, we can't ever say security is 100%, but what we can do is make it less likely. So, and that's what we really need to get to. And I think accepting that, you will probably have a breach of some sort at some time is really helpful to, and because I've heard people go, oh, well, I just can't, so we'll just leave it, which is not the right attitude. So it's really important that we think about this in different layers as well, because one control will not fix everything. It just doesn't happen like that. So for the last 15 minutes or so that I have, slightly less, I'm going to talk about stuff you should know about, the capabilities you should know about, because there are many. And I'm not going to profess to be able to take you through everything you should know about security in 15 minutes, because that would be insane. But I'm going to talk to you about some capabilities that have changed a bit or that are new that you should be aware of, and depending on what your role is, you should maybe go and have a look at them or tell your security team to go and look at them. So I'll put them all up on the screen because it's easier. I'll probably overclick. So data security, CSPM, cloud security posture management, dev security stuff, incident response, and I've got to cover the elephant in the room, AI. I've currently, because now everyone's an armchair AI expert, so I will address that one as well. So to start with data security, who remembers network-based data loss prevention, DLP? Did it work? No, of course it didn't. I also remember working at a previous employer, and we had network-based DLP, and the way you got around network-based DLP, you just zipped up the file, and then you could email it out because it couldn't see zip files. Great. If you haven't looked at data security recently, I had to use Sheebs because I have Sheebs. If you haven't looked at modern data security stuff yet, it's really cool. So obviously the Microsoft thing is Purview, but basically these are the things you should be doing, and we can do them well now. Like I said, don't have time to go into this in loads of detail, but you can now use automation to classify data. No one's going to go through and manually label anything. We can now do that using automation. Go through your data, it'll search through, it'll look for certain attributes in the data, and then you can label it high, medium, confidential, sensitive, whatever it is. And then when it's got labels, you can put controls on it. And then obviously those controls stop stuff happening. And the last thing, because this is very relevant for Europe, but I mean it's relevant for everywhere because Europeans are everywhere. For GDPR, of course, you shouldn't be retaining data for any longer than you need to, but of course getting rid of it is hard, and we can do that with these labels too. I can tell you that I have played around with Purview, and because I thought it's DLP, I'm a security person, I can break this because that's what security people are like. No, I was like, I tried to print it, I tried to email it, I tried to put it on a USB, I tried to screenshot it. Doesn't let you do anything. It's really good. Like, it actually works as for data loss prevention. It's very cool. So if you have not looked at any data stuff more recently than the horrible manual stuff we had before, you really should. Look, as I said, it's got good controls. So, you can't copy things, you can't share them, you can stop certain apps getting to it, and you can do all these things. It's very, very cool. I did spend significant amount of time. I put like the most controls I could on a file in Purview and then tried to send it places, and the only thing I could do was like take a picture with my phone, which was rubbish. So, and I don't know how we would stop that one, but it's very, very cool. And I think data security is going to become even more of a thing because we talk about all the other security controls, we talk about infrastructure, we talk about maybe application controls, but we never talk about how we're controlling the data that sits around. And that was traditionally because the technology didn't work very well, but now it does. So if you have not looked at this recently, you really should. Oh, and just because Microsoft, we love to change names and things, so just a little bit. So this is kind of where it fits in. You've got Defender, and DLP is sort of Purview. Microsoft Information Protection also fits under Purview now, and Insider Risk Management also fits under Purview. But then Defender is kind of your threat protection, just because people get confused with all the name changes, which is reasonable because they happen quite a bit. Right, CSPM, anyone know what it stands for? Oh no, I told you what it stood for. Anyone know what it stands for when I just told you? So, who here actually monitors their secure score? Couple of people, not as many as I would like, but a couple of people do. In my previous Microsoft role, I accidentally asked a customer, I said, oh, what's your secure score? And they logged in, they'd never looked at it, and then proceeded to shout at their service provider who was in the room. It was very awkward. Very awkward. Anyway, CSPM, this is probably, if there's one thing you take away from this, this would be it. CSPM tooling allows you, obviously there's some people already using it in here, but it basically will look at your general security hygiene, the stuff I was talking about before, and it will actually tell you if there's something wrong, and it will do it automatically. So if you've got something that's not patched, you've got a storage account open, if you've got ports open that don't need to be, it will tell you. CSPM in Microsoft land is now Defender for Cloud. It's the artist formerly known as Azure Security Center. The basic version's free. If you haven't looked at it, you really should. It goes across everything as well. It's not just Azure, it goes across AWS and Google and on-prem, because of course, there's no point in security tooling at looking at one thing, because attackers don't do that. I have a sticker that says, that's out of scope, said no attacker ever. Because attackers aren't just gonna look at your Azure. They're not just gonna look at your AWS or whatever. They just go across whatever they can. So security tooling needs to do the same. So if you haven't looked at it, go and look at it. And, does anyone monitor their secure score? Is it working? It doesn't seem to have the URL. Is it working? We did a show of hands anyway. Oh. Is it happy? Oh, okay, well, never mind. We already did a show of hands. How? Whatever. But also, I was using the bad animation in PowerPoint. I was trying to play around with animation. But if you haven't used Defender for CSPM, which is what I've just been talking about, the free trial is extended till the 1st of August because it just was, and so I just tell everybody. So if you haven't played around with the paid version, you can play around with it for like another month or so for free. So you should go do that because it's good. Obviously, I'm a bit biased there, but yeah. I've heard this too many times. We can just do a pen test at the end. The answer is no, you cannot. Well, you can, and I'm not gonna, look, we've got a ton of stuff out here. There are people from GitHub right in the front here. So, obviously GitHub and Microsoft better together, but we have a ton of secure software development tooling. And if you haven't looked at dev tooling for security recently, it is way nicer than it used to be. So, it goes across the whole development lifecycle. It doesn't take hours and hours. It's not going to make you horribly unproductive like some of it used to. Again, if you haven't looked at it for a while, you should do. I'm not going to, I've already talked about Defender for Cloud, but the other two that I wanted to bring to your attention, they officially come under the umbrella of Defender for Cloud, but you have Defender for DevOps and Defender for APIs. They're in public preview. Go and have a play around with them. We want your feedback. I'm just telling people about them because obviously they're new and we want to get the word out. They're going to be very cool. They both do some very cool things. So if you haven't had a play around, please do. And then of course we do say better together. Use GitHub Advanced Security for doing secure development, and Defender for DevOps is for your pipeline. Because we often get asked, what do I use? Why do I need both of them? Isn't there overlap? They actually do slightly different things, but they are nicer together because, again, we don't just secure one thing, we secure lots of things. And, Entra. Anyone use B2C here? Okay, so I hope you watched the Build announcements. It's now called Entra External ID. And it's basically B2C, but with all the stuff that you couldn't do in B2C from Azure AD put in it, which is awesome. So it's going to be really, really nice to use. It's built for devs. It's actually designed on developer tools. Again, we just announced this at Build not that long ago, last month. So if you haven't looked at it yet and you're using B2C, you should, because the stuff that was missing from B2C is now in external ID. So hooray! And it's got the policy engine and all the fun bits like this. I would have gone through this in more detail, but I'm looking at my time and I cannot. But feel free to come and talk to me afterwards. Oh, now it's decided it wants to work again. So do you use developer security tools in your environment? You want to name them? I'm like, now everyone's like, I hope you're saying defend. Duck. Is that a tool? Unicorns. Yeah, unicorns, okay. Trivy, I know, is actually a tool. Defender. Defender for what? SonarQube. Veracode, cool. Sonar Cloud, yeah. GitHub Advanced Security, nah, woo, there you go. Some of those I'm not sure they're real tools. Some of them are, but nice, cool. Bunghole, is that a tool? Is that like a weird open source tool I didn't know? Oh, I didn't change that. There you go. Incident response. Okay. So if you didn't know, we have an incident response retainer from the DART team. DART is our detection and response team. We always say it's the Microsoft team that you never want to meet. Let's see if anyone wants to be honest. It's all anonymous, and this isn't recorded anywhere. So have you ever had a security incident at your organization that you may have needed help with? Oh, no? You just don't know about it. So the DART team, you can now have them, like I said, they are very cool. They're actually now called Microsoft Incident Response. They've changed their names. We call them the Ghostbusters, hence why we have that. That's very unofficial, but it's everywhere. So if you need to call the Ghostbusters, do. Hopefully you don't. Take all my advice and you won't need to, I promise. And then finally, AI, I will finish on, as you can see, the zero trust experts all becoming AI experts nowadays. Now, this is obviously a hot topic, and I will preface this with, I am not an AI expert. But there's two bits to AI security. You have the security of AI and things, AI models and things you're building, and then AI for security, where we put extra AI in security tooling to make it better, faster, stronger, blah, blah. Now, I find the first one there more interesting. And AI for security, look, you may have seen the announcement, we're doing Security Copilot. Oh, wait, oh, look, it's gone. It's gone. Look, can you just see? It does say Security Copilot there, just. So our security using AI, that's gonna be Security Copilot. It's all very cool, and you'll see more on that stuff, which I wasn't gonna talk about, but I wanted to talk about this AI architecture, how you architect AI, very, very briefly, because I know I'm running out of time. But there's three bits. There's like your platform. Most people aren't going to have their own AI platform. That's going to be a Microsoft or a cloud provider because you don't have the compute. So we take care of that. But then this application side where you integrate into the AI platform, and then we call it process in Microsoft land, but it's essentially the interface where you do that. This is where the security controls are going to be interesting. So essentially, we don't have any brand new shiny security controls for AI. Just don't let anyone tell you anything different, because we still need to use the same stuff. Software supply chain, that goes into your AI models and how you code into it. Dev security, obviously you need to integrate and code securely into your AI application. The operational security controls, that's going to be all here. And then identity and access management, who gets into this? Again, none of these are new controls. And data security, like how the data goes in, how it comes out, what stuff it's trained with. This is all, there is nothing new here. So don't let anyone tell you that how we're going to secure AI is something weird and wonderful and new and magical. It's not. We're still going to be falling back on these traditional security controls to secure AI. Obviously it's early days and it's changing a lot, so I don't want to say tons about it, but that's basically where we are. And if you've never seen an AI attack, this is a very interesting thing. This is a really classic example. Basically, you add some noise to an image, and see, it thinks it's a panda, and you put some noise that is basically imperceptible to a human, and then it decides it's a gibbon. Like this is a really basic, but the AI attacks are super interesting. And I've got a link to a book that was written. It's very accessible. It's only like a couple of days read if you're interested in this stuff, which is in my things at the end. Also, be aware, there are some security standards coming for AI. They are in draft. You've got the NIST one, so the one in the US is coming. Obviously, it's the US, so that's going to be voluntary. But then you've got the EU version that's coming, which is mandatory. There's a debate about whether this is going to be as far-reaching as GDPR or not, but bear in mind that if you're starting to use AI, these are going to become real things soon, and you will have to be prepared for them. Last question. Have you thought about how to secure your AI? Anyone? I know you're all using AI. No. Yeah. No. No. Yeah. Oh. Yeah, that's kind of, more no. And is anyone using sort of proper production data security type stuff in their AI and haven't thought about security? I don't believe you. You just don't want to admit it. So in summary, here are the capabilities you should have. Obviously, I've gone through these crazy high level because I would be here all day, but I strongly encourage you to go and look at these things if you haven't looked at them recently, especially, because they developed so much. Here's my QR code, lots of fun links on there. Thank you for having me, Lowlands. Feel free to come up. I'm going to throw Tim Tams. Whilst you all scan the QR code, I should come and throw Tim Tams randomly at the audience. Literally, I'm just going to throw them. So go. Go Tim Tams. And thank you very much for having me. I will hang around. Come and get stickers. Do the things. Do the things.